All right, so after we've done the shaping of the root canal, we did the filing, and we want to go into the cleaning, the irrigation part of the root canal. Since we are using such small diameters and small tapers, how do we get the irrigation all the way up to the apical part of the root?
That's a really important question. Yeah. And the early proponents of minimally invasive endodontics got the access cavities to be almost minuscule. They were jokingly called ninja accesses because nobody could get into them, and small coronal shapes. So beautiful preservation of tooth structure, but we're not seeing any lateral anatomy at all. So they were having challenges with that. Now, what does that mean? That means if you typically just let the solution sit in there during your shaping procedure, now that it takes 30 to 60 seconds to do the shaping procedure, you've almost done no cleaning. All the most important cleaning happens now after the shape is created. So with that situation, how do we manage the apical third of root canals that are only maybe a 1503 shape? Mm-hmm. Well, the research shows that just putting a gutta percha point to place and retrieving it freshens the solution all the way to the end of the root canal. So if you understand irrigation technology, for minimal amount of money, you can have the right concentration of solutions, you can be placing them in the right order of use during the root canal. Mm-hmm. And one of the big things we're going to talk about, I hope, is why is EDTA better during the procedure than hypochlorite? If you're using them in the right order, you're using the right concentration, we can predictably clean root canals, kill every bug, remove every little shred of pulp tissue. Mm. And once you do that, everything else will work out. It doesn't matter how you do the rest of the root canal.
Yeah. So why do you use your EDTA during the shaping part?
That's a great question. The reason that I've kind of gone against the grain of what everybody else is doing is I came to realize that rotary files cut dentin so rapidly that they create an amount of dentin debris that we never had with hand files. Mm-hmm. So when we were doing a little bit of cutting with each of the files and we're going through all these instruments and irrigating between each of them, smeared layer was never an issue. Once we put a rotary file in there and we're generating like a whole canal full of debris in 15 seconds, now we got a problem. So what I finally became aware of is I think the number of lateral canals and accessory canals that I was able to see postoperatively were influenced negatively because I was shoving and blocking up these lateral recesses with the dentin debris that I was cutting. Mm-hmm. So what's the answer to that? Well, a weak acid dissolves that. So if we're going to remove it at the end, why not do it while we're actually creating it? Yeah. And when we remove the smeared layer as it's being created, we have a better environment for the hypochlorite to do its most important job.
Yeah. So actually you're using a lubricant during finding of the apex, right. And you're using EDTA during the instrumentation.
And the last act with the file in the root canal, in the presence of EDTA solution, is slip the largest file that will passively drop through the end of the root canal. Yeah. That's going to dispel that last little 1 or 2 particles of debris, and your cone fit's going to be perfect.
Yeah, and that's the last time you use EDTA until the last step. In between, you use the
So I'm going to be using hypochlorite for a certain amount of time, depending on how I activate it. Yeah. If I was doing gentle wave, it'd be an 8-minute cycle after I make the platform. Mm-hmm. If I'm using ultrasonics, I can start my irrigation cycle by activating the solutions in each of the canals, freshening it. You see a lot of gas bubbles coming up. And after you do that 2 or 3 times, suddenly there's not as much release of CO2 and oxygen into the irrigating solutions. And then you're set up better to let time take its effect. We can choose to use 40 minutes of time if they just soak and it's a passive irrigation routine, or if you want to get it done in 10 minutes, you've got to do something to speed that up.
Yeah. So how would you do that? What is your...
My answer is, I always thought that EndoVac, negative pressure irrigation, was a genius concept that hadn't met its potential. I thought they should have had manifolds so you could do all the canals at the same time. Mm-hmm. I thought you should have a closed system so you didn't have to drip hypochlorite in there. And so that's what pulp sucker is all about, is create a closed system, negative pressure irrigation device that feeds itself. Once you hook it up, you leave the operatory, and the most important part of the procedure is being done without you there.
Yeah. Well, you showed the small bubbles in between, you mixed up with the sodium hypochlorite.
Oh, right.
To get a shear force.
Foaming it?
Yeah, foaming
Yeah.
it.
The biggest surprise I got during this investigation was that if you add a surfactant to your sodium hypochlorite, which is you buy a pint or a half gallon of it, put 2 drops of dish detergent in there, the stuff you have next to your sink in the kitchen, 2 drops, shake it up. Now you have a surfactant. If you draw a little bit of air into your syringe and shake it, it creates foam. And when you irrigate with foamy hypochlorite, it's twice as effective as the regular stuff.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
All right. So could you elaborate a little bit more about the pulp sucker? How does it work? What does it function?
Okay. Well, it's a closed system. So we have a stage that's adhered to the tooth in a way that creates a seal. So then we can apply a vacuum from our chairside evacuation unit, and that will pull the solution out of the hypochlorite bag through the needles out the end and to evacuate it. So what we've created is a totally passive way to have solution come out the end of the needles. The advantage of that is, besides the 100% safety, is we have an effect 5 millimeters ahead of the needle. With Endovac, all the solutions are going in. You only get an effect as deep as you can place the needle. With our outflow, it, as I said, affects at least 5 millimeters ahead. So if you have a small curved canal and you just get the irrigating cannula to mid-root, you're golden.
All right.
So what did we do? What did it do? It created multi-cannular irrigation, meaning all the canals are being irrigated at the same time. That's huge if you're doing molars. If you take a 40-minute procedure and collapse it into 5 minutes, but you have to hang on to the handpiece for each of 4 canals, that's not an improvement. Now you're hanging out for 20 minutes, bored out of your mind. Yeah. So we want to hook it up and leave and go have a cappuccino.
Yeah. That's always a good idea. So from my perspective, you have the sodium hypochlorite in an IV bag.
Yes.
So that is...
And that is hooked to a manifold with little lines coming off it with cannulas.
And gravity is pulling...
And gravity is pulling it. So if you'd like greater flow, just lift. I usually have it hanging from my microscope handle. Yeah. I just lift the microscope a little bit and the flow increases. On the other end, we're pulling it with the vacuum. Yeah. And so it's a system that runs without a power cord.
Yeah, and that makes it completely safe because you did the chances of sodium hypochlorite going through the apex is basically zero.
You have to push it to cause a hypochlorite accident. Yeah. We're pulling it, so it's literally impossible.
Yeah, the point of the cannulas are inside of the root on the apical 1/3 of the tooth, and they suction the sodium hypochlorite.
No, that's Endovac. This is the reverse. We apply the vacuum to the pulp chamber, and that pulls the solution out the end of the needles. Yeah. I probably misunderstood.
But
sorry.
Okay, cool. All right. So what's the most important thing you've shared with us today in this course?
By far and away, the most important thing I shared was that root canal files do not clean root canals. Yeah. And that's unbelievably liberating because now you don't have to over prep the ends of root canals. Yeah. The bigger the file, the more likely you're going to cause damage. And if you have a 14-year-old kid that has a pulp that died, you don't have to cut any dentin. They have naturally perfectly shaped root canals. So once you understand where all the action is happening, it's in the irrigation, not in the instrumentation, then we'd have no instrumentation accidents. We don't have any apical blockage, no ledging. We have more ability to get around curvatures because our files are smaller and more flexible. Yeah. Because we know in a molar, even if you think you're cleaning it with the file, you can only cut half the canal walls in that space. So that's the most important thing that I shared with you. If everybody left here and just goes, okay, I'm not cleaning root canals with the file, I'd be happy. Their cases would improve.
It was a great message. It opened my eyes, so I'm very, very grateful for that. The course will be on our website, so people can view your course through the Karma platform.
Awesome.
So I was very happy to be here to meet you in person. I was very honored.
Likewise.
So I hope to see you in the future. You come back to Europe, to the Netherlands again, to give a good follow-up on all your developments and
Love to
good
do
work
that.
you do. So
Hope to see you.
Thank you.